Thanks for tuning in to Season 4 of Strange, Rare, and Peculiar Homeopathy Podcast, where homeopathy lives, breathes, and evolves with Denise Straiges and Alastair Gray. We'll be exploring modern practice, research, and philosophy, from Hahnemann's radical insights to today's breakthroughs and discoveries. Get ready for homeopathy woes, feedback from pros, and the more you knows.
Ready.
You know, the other day I was watching a podcast and someone said my introduction to the podcast, which of course is hello, welcome, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning.
News for you.
What's that?
A lot of people say that.
You kidding?
No, I never wanted to tell you because it's really cute. And I could tell you're really into it.
I thought I was unique. Disappointment.
No, you are unique. Please don't sell yourself short.
Well, here we are. Thank you for that. We have cups of tea. We have had 3 kilos of Naughty Vicar delivered to our front door yesterday. Life is good. Early spring.
This is a milestone moment, though.
Why's that?
Because this is the last recording in the offices that we're in now.
Does it? You've just now put me under real pressure to finish up.
We are moving our offices out. Wait, before we start talking about it, I have to respond to a listener comment. There's someone who is very sad that we don't just provide straight up content.
Yeah, they don't like us farting around at the beginning.
No farting around, no talking. They said we wasted 10 to 15 minutes. They were going to give us one more try. I feel really bad. Part of this is we're chatty and we get down to serious business throughout our podcasts and we're chatty. And anybody who really, in all seriousness though, this content is sort of our community service, getting a dialogue going, getting people to talk about homeopathy in a way that is not sort of the candy homeopathy. We do have a school. And so anybody who really wants to take it further, we have a very organized delivery system for homeopathy content. But there are some other things too, like we do lectures all the time. And that's one of the things. So today's agenda is that we're going to do a recap of the JAHC conference, in particular our 2 talks, and we're going to focus on my talk a bit, which is really a dovetail into Hahnemann's chronic diseases and sort of the ways in which the evolutionary thinking in medicine we may have come full circle to where autoimmune disease is requiring us to rethink the germ theory model. So that's where we're headed. But to the person who doesn't like our chit chat, fast forward maybe. Yeah. Anyway.
Or go to school, or don't try and learn homeopathy from a podcast.
Well, the other thing too is that our 4th semester, just as we're getting into this though, if you're already a homeopath, we have our 4th semester is a postgrad program. And so it's complex autoimmunity, it's a research module, it's long-term case management, complex case management, advanced materia medica, critical thinking in advanced materia medica. So it's a really robust semester and it is open to anyone who has studied. And if you've studied some and you want to sort of pathway into our program and like pick up some things that you didn't get, we have a policy where we don't charge people for what they didn't get elsewhere. You know, one of the nice things about being a not-for-profit who's, you know, one of our 4 fundamental missions is to make homeopathy education accessible through scholarships. And part of that is that we give back a lot of education. So please don't, obviously we're recruiting for our 2 cohorts that start in the fall, but there are ways in which people who already have a basic level of knowledge who want to sort of go deeper into Hahnemannian theory and increase their positive outcomes with homeopathy, you could do that.
Well, I don't want to start there. I want to start somewhere else.
Oh, where are we going to start with the office though? So
yeah, but hang on. I want to start with a letter that I got from a listener who's doing God's work in Tanzania. So
Rebecca.
Yeah. So Rebecca, thanks for that. And Rebecca Stirrup is a colleague of ours who divides the time really between Tanzania and New Zealand.
She's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And, good on you and 100 thank yous for everything, but just especially the affirmation that some of the harder conversations that maybe don't get had in the community are this is a place where we gently go there. So yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. And gosh, you want to talk about somebody who is just doing their part. She's contributing so much to Homeopathy for Health in Africa, the project in Tanzania. And if you're not familiar with that project, go online and look up HHA. Jeremy and Camilla Scher have been there for, oh my gosh, a long time, because Jeremy was first starting to go there when I was in my Dynamis program in postgrad, and I did that from 2004 to 2000.
Gotta say 20 years. Yeah, so it's 20 years.
20 years.
Mm.
And then one of my best friends on the planet, Tina Quirk, has been there for several years. She spends like 9 months out of the year there, and she's coming back this week.
Really?
Next week.
Can
Yeah.
we get to see Tina?
Yeah. Well, and we get to be in the same time zone for more chatting. Anyway, so we're moving out of our offices. So right now, where you see us, if you see us if you're looking at us on YouTube or I guess you could see it on Spotify too. We're each in our own offices, but Al built this three-sided shed in our yard between our greenhouse and our hoop house. And I don't know, one day I was like, oh, let's get doors for the front of it. And then it became, let's make it into an office. So we're about to we're each going to be in an 8x8 cubicle next to each other, like a small box, because we teach at the same time. So we have to have a wall between us. And so I'm not sure how this is going to work
I'm
or
not
where
sure.
you're going to see us. But we're moving furniture tomorrow. We're moving not officially into our office, but our house is getting moved around. It's a little crazy. Anyway, so that's
I'd just say
exciting.
that in addition to having done nothing but homeopathy for 37 years, I have to say that I really enjoy a chainsaw in building projects.
You do. I think
It's
it's
a
good
little
that you,
tougher in the fine work, the cabinetry making side of things. But when you want to
the
get shit done,
finishing.
yeah.
Yeah. But like you were building major things with a chainsaw, and one of our friends came over and he was like, "No, you need a table saw."
Yeah.
And now that you're doing corners, you need a miter box. We'll talk about that.
I don't even know what that
I
means.
know, we'll discuss. It's for making a proper corner. Anyway, so we have some fun things to talk about. So we were at it was the last Joint American Homeopathy Conference in Reston, Virginia, and it was sad. It's bittersweet. Bittersweet. It wasn't sad because I mean, I guess in the end, there were a fair number of people. I think they might have gotten close to 300, but it used to be, 600. The conference where we met, there were over 600
Oh,
people.
yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. So, I mean, I guess things are
That's what
changing.
happens when the keynote is
Oh, because you were the keynote, right? It
yeah,
was a draw for
is a draw.
this sassy Kiwi who was living in Australia. Mm. But it sort of changed and morphed. And I guess, we'll see how the community picks up on this. But the AIH and the HANP, they've had their conference there have been three of them, 3 years,
Hmm?
which have been amazing. And so hopefully they'll add the social component. Because I think with the JHC, which one of our colleagues, Amy, said about 5 years ago, she goes, let's call it the Jack, spread it around.
Let's just call it the Jack.
Let's just call it the Jack. Why don't we call it the Jack? And it's stuck. And so lots of people call it the Jack. So the one thing about the Jack, though, is the social part of it, the dancing, I don't know, there's just yeah. Although this year, I mean, like some people that we're used to hanging out with weren't there. Like Dana Ullman wasn't there. I think it's the only conference I've ever been to. Only Jack without Dana.
Any Jack without Dana. Dana, what went on?
Was
Where were
he?
you?
I don't know. Might have woken up late. So, yeah. So we've got anyway, so we wanted to talk a little bit though about that. So there were two things that we were involved in. One was the research office I thought it was amazing. Al had put together a workshop, and it was mostly led by two folks, amazing folks from our research office, Rachel Doherty and Christine Luketic. I always called her Luketic, so I'm really sorry for that, Christine. Anyway, those two were dynamos. It was so good. And what they did was they worked through kind of how a piece of research goes from a concept to a failed concept to an improved concept to a trial to a paper to publication.
Hmm.
And you led it beautifully out. I was involved sort of to top and tail a little bit about the research office, but I hadn't actually seen what you guys had put together, and I was blown away. And so one of the things that happened was because of some, let's just gently call it a miscommunication with how it was going to be delivered. Unfortunately, there was no advertising of it. There were no directions to people where to go, even though I spoke right before it and told people they couldn't find it. It was in an out of the way place. So we did not have a lot of people come. They couldn't find it. So we're going to take that on the road because I think that people will really enjoy hearing the process. And one of the things that's really cool is that Christine is a PhD statistician who is a really good teacher. And she's actually about to graduate from our program and has worked in the research office the whole time. And her teaching style is she's kind of dry and funny. And she just handled these tough concepts that I think could be vexing to people in a beautiful way. So look out for this. We're figuring out how we're going to take this on the road. Well, we're just going to consider that to have been like a dry run. It was good. And they talked about the subject was about the AI papers. So there are now two, right? Two AI papers.
Yeah. So
And yeah,
it
talk
just
about
seemed,
that a little bit.
yeah, look, it just seemed to me to be important that, well, for another reason actually, but it seemed to be important that people that are research adjacent, not necessarily in the field, but kind of, maybe clinicians that look over their shoulders and see what's going on, see how a research project begins. When I say
Mhm.
project, I'm kind of using a very specific word there because a research project is not a task. There are many tasks involved in a project. And so why I love, one of the reasons why I absolutely adore working with Rachel and Christine and Parker is because we are all fairly organic in the way in which we begin a project.
Yeah.
And it's really synergistic and nice because I've got an interest in technologies. Let's say that's the broader project. Well, one of the tasks is, well, AI is now dominating medicine and now dominating, or to an extent, homeopathy, but let's find out how and why and with what kind of impact and with what kind of quality. And that
Yeah.
was the initial question. And you realize, oh, that's a good question, right? Cool
Yeah.
question. But then when you go, well, how are we going to ask or measure how are we going to gather data to answer this question?
Right.
Then you start getting into some corners because, of course, my naive understanding when it came to, say, AI was that all AI is the same. It was not, and so you've got large language models, you've got algorithm generated remedy finders, you've got bespoke homeopathic large language models. You've got everything in between. And those things, I mean, the LLMs, the predictors of language, and, those, if you've got four ingredients in your kitchen and you want to make dinner, they could be useful if you want to ask a question of an LLM when you've got broccoli,
Lentil.
rice, pasta, and potatoes. It's like, what are you going to do?
Right.
And so the point is that the beginning of that particular project changed and evolved. And it's actually fine in a research context for that. And it's known as an exploratory mixed methods research model. And somewhere, I think it's that book there. That's the book by Cresswell,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
who's the founder of mixed methods. I'm going to say the founder, but mixed methods research, he's the guy.
Yeah.
And Cresswell talks about that. I learned a lot about it in my PhD about how the research itself or the questions you're asking and sometimes the way in which you go about collecting the data inform the question, and therefore it's got to be changed and adapted and adopted. And it's entirely legitimate as long as you're transparent about it. And so anyway, that's how we got going with it. I thought it was a really good idea to let people know that that happens and how it happens. And then we got into the weeds with the collection of the 100 cases to ultimately compare a live practitioner, a live human being, and a bot. And are they in any way, is there any overlap between the two? That was my initial question, and that's what the project ultimately turned out to be. We've written a couple of papers, been published in a journal called Healthcare, and then we've just been invited, based on those two, to submit an article and a leading article in another publication, AI in Medicine.
Yeah.
And I think that is, geez, folks, I think that is indicative of the import of research in our work. I've not, and when I say this, I touch wood, like touch every piece of wood around, but I've not suffered any of the discrimination that we hear going on in the world of homeopathy from orthodox medicine. It's just like
Well, so
it
this
does.
is another thing, actually. I'm glad that you said this because can I just I want to pivot a tiny bit to come back to this because there's a context that I want to have us grounded in because, this is where people be flipping off. They're like, all I want to hear about is, the practice of homeopathy and remedies or whatever, because homeopathy is seen as this one specific thing. And that's what we need to talk about because actually, what we want to get everybody talking about is like this bigger picture. In other words, it's not just about I gave a person a remedy and their headache went away, but rather who are we in the context of the emerging medical paradigm and how do we make a difference as we go from point A to point B if we actually want to get there? Because we have two choices. We can sit around and be victims because a lot of people are like, oh, everybody's mean to us and da da da, and trying to become sort of green allopaths with their homeopathy. But at the end of the day, when you do the work and you get the results, there's no stopping it. The only stopping it is to sort of misappropriate it. I have to show this. There are a couple of buttons. I wish I had the picture to share of you, handy, of you with all your buttons on. But Carly Hour, who stepped up to create the NAHI, the North American Homeopathy Examiners, when the CHC dropped the accredited
You
school
talked
requirement.
about these buttons.
There we go. Al walked around. If you can see it, he's got his conference lanyard on with a bazillion buttons. He looked like a clown, but it was amazing. And it made like a clanking noise. But Carly's got this one button that says, read the organon and do the work. Shortcuts don't equal cure. And the other one, single remedy, fight me, with a picture of Hahnemann wearing sunglasses. It's a little naughty, but we like that kind of naughty. Anyway, but the point I want to make though is that this research thing. So even if you're not into research, and if somebody says mixed methods research and you go to your, happy place and start rocking inside and thinking about what you're having for lunch, like I totally get it. That being said, we're trying to get people to think outside of this because there's homeopathy and how you do it. And then there's homeopathy and how we, by doing it well, are going to make a difference. And how by communicating about it and by engaging in the conversation in a way that's not defensive and that is just like, look, this is what it is and this is how we move forward. I think we have a really amazing, amazing shot at it.
Yeah.
That's
So
why I love the research that you got, because that's what I loved about the project that you presented. I mean, the subject matter was amazing, like the AI paper, but what I loved was the tag team of Rachel and Christine talking about how the sausage is made. And it was incredibly compelling. I really liked that.
the sausage is not always the thing you want to see made.
Definitely not.
Mm.
Okay. So that was the one thing. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of attendance because of the putting us in a corner, which is fine. But it's gonna happen again. So that was a dry run because I think it
And then
needs
what
to.
about yourself? You talk about you.
Yeah,
Because you were great.
okay. Oh, thanks for that. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about my talk because the subject matter, I think, is something, I don't know, I find it to be really interesting. But again, like this idea of how we need to be engaging in this conversation. So I'm going to start this with a question, which is, are we, as a homeopathy community, are we aligning with the medicine? In other words, the little white pills, the dynamite substance, are we aligning with that? Or are we aligning with the philosophy and the medicines together? Once you separate them, they're two different things. Oh, if you can see the video, Al's got a picture of me presenting, and
You're
I'm in
doing it
what he would
the
call
half teapot,
a
right?
half teapot. Yeah.
But in a very dynamic way. I love it. I got a heap of those.
So,
Sorry,
um,
and to reiterate, it's a really critical question because if you start to ask the question, what is homeopathy? Then half the folks seem to head towards, well, it's the application of these remedies that have been prepared, and the remedies are prepared in these pharmacies, or it's not. And then half the folks are saying, well, no, the remedies only become homeopathic when they're given homeopathically.
and even before that, like if we go before it, right? Because you said when the homeopathic remedy, but I think in many people's minds, it's just a micro dilution.
Yeah.
And so, like, if we start at the very beginning of the premise, The idea is actually, as Hahnemann would say, when he gets to the sixth and final edition of the Organon, that he was finally able to extract spirit from matter. Right? And so that's a really important point because that says this is not just a big dilution, because there's the trituration and then there's the dilution and the succussion. So it's a three-part process. And then you have the operational part of, water with it. And so when you're looking at this idea, when people are saying, oh, I think everybody should just be taking a homeopathic remedy because it's safer and it's not toxic and, whatever, it's a very different perception because first of all, it's not understanding what the pill does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it has the capacity to put life back into an organism otherwise losing life. That's what chronic diseases is about. So if you're looking at just the medicine, they're like landmines all over in the discussion. And so I guess that's the beginning of it. Like as a community, when we're going forward, because right now I think this is important because there's the committee that is convened, the Joint Committee, to establish standards for the appropriateness of the finished product. But how do you jump to the finished product if people haven't agreed on what the product represents and has the capacity to do?
Mm.
So it's about the medicine. And like, I totally get when we have the conversations, because there are just about 50 people who are convened for this committee, and we come from all different parts of the
dial.
Yeah, it's a really important question. Obviously, this is a process. It's through the NSF, the National Standards Foundation, and it's open to anyone. You can apply to be a part of this conversation. To be a voting, you have to apply and be admitted, but to be a voting member, which Alastair and I both are, full disclosure, they have like proportions, how many people are representing each thing. Public health, I think, it's public health, the consumer, and then what's the third category?
Can't remember.
I can't remember. Anyway,
Safety.
what is it?
Safety.
Safety. So anyways, this conversation, it's about the pill, and rightfully so, because that's what this is about. It's about the manufacturing process. But it does beg the questions about who's using it and how are they using it. So like, for example, I'm thinking about how I want to approach this because it actually has to come in from another door. So let me table the way that I'm putting this because this is what my talk kind of leads to.
Well, then
so
knock on the door.
Yeah, so I'm going to knock on that door. But so we're going to put in one bucket here just this conversation of thinking about there's the medicine, and then there's the application of principles using the medicine, right? And then there's at the very beginning the understanding of what the medicine actually is and does. So, like, if you're a manufacturer and you don't understand aphorism 270 and the extraction of spirit from matter, like, it's a whole different conversation. And it's like totally fine, right? Because people should be able to have their businesses. But how do you not sound so weird in this conversation? You're not going to go into an FDA meeting and say, well, by the time you're extracting spirit from matter, right? Like, they'll lock you up and throw away the key, I'm assuming.
I thought you were going to approach this from a different perspective, because the thing that was really striking about your talk, focusing on another AI, autoimmunity, isn't it interesting that both of our talks were AI?
Well, I changed it's actually AD, autoimmune disease.
All right. Anywho, because you approached it from an historical perspective and you approached it from a perspective getting people to think about the way in which the evolution of science and the scientific method affected homeopathy.
Yes.
And therefore, isn't it interesting that at the time where there's a serious conversation happening in allopathic medicine about the microbiome and the fact that we cannot keep approaching this problem from a reductionistic point of view.
Right.
At the same time, the homeopaths, or half the homeopaths, the schmomeopaths, those folks are going, oh, there's a bug, kill it.
Well, that's exactly where I was going. That's why I said I needed to put that in a bucket.
Okay.
Come round. Exactly.
All right.
So we've got.
Sorry, I just want to weigh on that because, and in the talk, that was the moment, that was the mic drop moment when I think a whole lot of people realized, oh, I think I understand what she's just said, and I'm going to forget it now because it's really inconvenient because I like giving lots of nosodes and I like giving lots of, like allopathic, homeopathic interventions, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, so this is the thing. So the premise for the talk was that there is a way in which Hahnemann 100% understood the manifestation of disease, acute and chronic disease. Now, in the very beginning, he didn't. I mean, he understood, I think, the difference between acute and chronic disease, but he treated them as if the same. Remember, in the beginning of homeopathy, his 4 principles, and I know Al likes 7, but for ease, it's you give one remedy at a time for the largest totality of symptoms that can be perceived, or the most appropriate or relevant totality. You give it in,
And
sorry?
the minimum dose and based on similars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
According to the law of similars, and given in the minimum dose in order to begin the healing process. And then Hahnemann gets to a point in 1816, so only 6 years after the first edition of the Organon, where he's like, oh, it's actually not working. So if we just stop right there, right? Hahnemann gets to the point in 1816 and he says, this limitation in the system doesn't work fully. Does it work for acute disease? It does. Does it work for chronic disease? It does not. And so there is a huge portion of the homeopathy community that stopped right there, that has not delved into the understanding of chronic diseases, their peculiar nature and their homeopathic cure, and all of the subsequent changes that Hahnemann made to the system of medicine to render it capable of the level of cure that was intended. And so we've got what we should call the 1816 problem in homeopathy. Let's start that like the JAHC. You got the 1816 problem. You got the people that stopped growing their understanding of homeopathy around 1816 or misappropriation.
Need some Tchaikovsky in the background right now.
What did you say? Said Tchaikovsky in the background?
Tchaikovsky, yeah. Like a little bit of Tchaikovsky. There's the cavalry coming and the blow of horns, and there's distress upon the land. And you are so right about that. And that it's the changes that Hahnemann went through. And then, because he then published in 1828, I think disease is caused by millions of tiny animals that we can't see yet.
Yes.
That's what he said. And he predicted he's 50 years ahead of Koch.
No, more than, 50 years, a little more than 50 years.
Yeah. And then Herring is running along with his microscope.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Herring
Anyway,
and his microscope.
I love it. By acknowledging a germ component in the disease process, not giving up on vitalism, not giving up on the true cause of disease being the terrain. But I think, Hahnemann's contribution to medicine is astronomical.
And it's gonna come around because the reductionistic paradigm is not working.
Yeah.
And this is the problem that we're at. So like the premise of my talk was this whole idea that you've got people now in allopathy and in homeopathy alike who are looking at complex chronic disease as a series of things to kill. So when the idea of root cause medicine is brought up, it's like kill the Lyme, or kill the Borrelia, kill the whatever, get a mold cleanse or
kill the aphids. They're ruining your roses. Kill the aphids.
Kill the aphids, all the things, right? Put an antifungal on, all of that. But what has happened is like that premise only works for a certain point. It's like that weird thing people talk about that homeopathy is like peeling the layers of an onion. How is that possible? You get to nothing. I mean, I suppose you get to an existential moment of I am free. But that's like being, what do you call it when all the laundry is done? Laundry neutral?
I call it laundry. I'm clothes neutral.
Clothes neutral. It's that feeling you get.
I love that feeling.
Yeah, I love it too. Like on a Sunday when the laundry is done
Sunday
and
afternoon.
everything is put away, clean sheets on the bed, and you're standing there, you're like nude for a minute where you go like, this is
no, I
great.
got clothes on.
Yeah, but guess what happens right after that?
You take them off.
Yeah. So then you're not laundry neutral anymore. And so that's the same thing with this idea of germ theory. This is like the weirdest connection I think we've ever made. That like the peeling of the onion homeopathy idea is like the attempt to become laundry neutral.
Well, just on that, I think it's a little different because it's more that what we can only do as homeopaths is see the externalized signs and symptoms of the disordered vitality.
Totally.
And therefore that emerges and then is dealt with, and the next thing emerges. And it's more that I think about the onion. I think that's what
Yeah,
the
but
analogy is.
that's aphorism 171,
Yeah.
right? But like, I actually, okay, I'm gonna try this out. I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this. Tell me what you think about this idea.
Well,
In attempts to have this conversation in the classroom, it's kind of complex because there is this idea of the onion, especially because of the way that we've talked about homeopathy for so long, like you're peeling away these layers, and it's been compounded by this idea of healing responses. We talked about this in sort of the recalibration of our understanding of herrings, not quite a law last time. And so if you're looking at it as if you get rid of one thing, but you have to suffer to get to the next thing and all that, I don't know, I find that a little bit difficult. So this is the premise that I have. I think it's inspired by acupuncture a little bit, or kind of that framework. So I imagine that we are energetic beings, right? And as energetic beings, we are vibrating. And imagine this as like vibrating with this like bright pink light. And that is the light of health that vibrates along with the universal resonance, like the Schumann resonance, right? This whole idea that we vibrate at the same megahertz as the universe,
why is
right?
it pink? Why does it have to be pink? Anyway, keep going. Keep
Okay,
going.
we can make it golden light. Let's make it golden light.
No, no,
I
no, no.
like
Keep
that,
going.
like champagne color. Okay,
All right.
it's champagne color. That's perfect. Okay, and so within that, there will be areas where the vibration is impeded and there's a different color to it. It's a darker color, and maybe it's pulsating at a different vibration.
Mm.
And that area is drawing energy away as
Mm.
opposed to giving life back. So when we give a homeopathic remedy, the homeopathic remedy is vibrating not with the megahertz of life, but rather the disease state. And so the homeopathic remedy, as the stronger similar disease, is matching the vibration of that is not integrated into the human. And the stronger similar remedy matches that and eventually neutralizes that pattern, thereby giving that energy back toward life, as opposed to being a drain away from life and vitality. Right? That's how I think about it. Not that we're like taking things away, but rather that in this attempt to achieve health, there is a vibrational pattern that represents health, and there are vibrational patterns that don't represent health. And the homeopathic remedy matches the part of it that is not related to health
Mm.
with a stronger energetic resonance, which neutralizes the disease and dissipates it.
I think it's a gorgeous analogy.
Do you like that?
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
I
So,
do. But there's plenty of analogies.
yeah, I mean, they're
I'll give
walking.
you an example.
Okay, hang on. For people who are listening, that's like you'll find this in aphorisms like 25, 26 to 48, 49, around there, where Hahnemann's talking about the law of similars and how only similars cure. And I just want to finish this up because I think what's interesting about this is that Hahnemann says there's only one disease evident at a time, except that there are complex diseases within the body that take up residence in the place of maximum susceptibility. So there's only one disease evident at the time, but there can be multiple patterns that are not a part of that disease, which becomes really important when you're analyzing a case. Because what a skilled homeopath recognizes is all of these things, and this is where we get down to chronic diseases and miasms and that understanding. You start to understand all of the things that are associated with the quote unquote disease, not a named condition, but the pattern of disease that is resonating against health and the life force. And when that is dissipated, the person can, by the lifting of that pattern of disease, achieve such a higher level of health that even though there are other areas of quote unquote disease, and when I say disease, again, not a named condition, not quantifiable pathology, but an energetic pattern that is moving away from life rather than towards life, right? That the eradication of that initial pattern could give the person so much more life force that the rest of that disease either could get taken care of by the life force of the individual, or their miasmatic disease is quieted and they're living in a state of latent miasmatic disease as opposed to active miasmatic disease where the suffering is really evident.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the completion of the thought.
I love it. It's a good thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all you got?
Well, yeah, because I'm a boy. And so my
Right.
analogy would involve a rolling carpet, for example. You see, upstairs in the loft,
Yeah.
if we go with some sort of development of disease model whereby, that moment of conception is really important, the genetic material, mum and
Yeah.
dad, boom, you're born, and the carpet rolls in front of you. And then, of course, all of those things influence. You know what would happen if we rolled or unrolled the carpet upstairs?
The cat pee, you mean?
Yeah, because at the back would be all the cat pee, right?
This
And
is
so,
disgusting.
see, to
You're going to have
me,
to explain this because people are going to think we live in a cat pee house.
no, no, we don't live in a cat pee house at all. But the point that I'm trying to make is I think that's actually the onion analogy there, or at least the changing symptom picture as
Hmm.
people get better, or as the opposite, as their illness develops. And
So
so,
if you
as
unroll the whole carpet, does it become like a magic carpet and you fly away?
no, 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 not at all. But
I,
it's in
I
fact
like
because
that.
it's the opposite. Because, basically what happens is that when we're getting good chronic treatment, the carpet unrolls, we reverse through all of those symptoms, and the symptom pictures change, and the symptom pictures always become psoric, towards psora. It always heads towards psora as you're getting better, and so more broader polycrests, blander symptoms, or no, not blander, but heading towards those larger psoric
Except
polycrests.
that there could be peaks where there are little, like a remedy to take off that
Yeah,
thing at the
exactly.
top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, just for clarity, folks, we do not live in a cat pee house at all.
No.
And so my analogy is very poor and
Yeah.
unfocused and
We do have a
unpracticed.
we do have a problem, and that is we have three cats. They're indoor outdoor cats, and they're siblings. They were born in the beginning of COVID. And of course, it seemed fine at that time. Like, who's ever leaving their house again, right? We're not going to get sheep, so we'll get three cats. And so one of them, the littlest one, Luna,
Yeah,
Lovegood,
Luna. Yeah,
she, yeah. So we put a litter box in our loft for her. She pees next to it. So we have one of those carpets that you can wash because yeah.
we're on the job.
Yeah, we're
Anywho,
on the job.
I totally like it. I thought we were also going to mention one other aspect of the JAHC as well.
Well, I'm still talking about chronic diseases. We haven't even gotten to oh, but our meeting starts in 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. Then this is, oh my gosh. We should have started there. I cannot believe it. I'm like the worst. Alastair got a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm so sorry that totally forgot. Alastair got a Lifetime Achievement Award. He got the Peter Fisher Memorial Award for research, and it was the best moment ever. Yay, you. Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, you. And the only reason I thought might be important to mention that is because I was gracious in my acceptance of the award because Peter Fisher was an amazing guy.
He was the
Um,
homeopath, the physician to the queen,
physician to the Queen.
like HRH, that queen.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, I did give them a bit of a serve as I accepted it because, of course, I don't work by myself and I'm not responsible for any of the publications that I've published because I work collaboratively. And I always and just seem to be surrounded by amazing women. And so I gave them a bit of a serve around why are you giving this to the male-bodied person? And then I mentioned that it was even more ridiculous because they were giving it to me and not to us because we're a team, right? And so everything you and I do, well, basically everything we do, we do together, totally codependent, especially in
Been
work.
better otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just gave that a voice. And I just thought it was, and I thought about it a lot over the month since I found out I was getting it, but it seemed to have landed really well, that message.
You delivered it beautifully. You really did. And I think it's important. It's funny that like in an industry, homeopathy, where it's carried on the backs of a whole lot of women, that there are a handful of men that consistently rise to the top, and not because of working harder, having better ideas sometimes.
Mm.
Although I don't want to throw any shade because you have done beautiful work and have brought so much to homeopathy. And I just think that you are the bee's knees. So congratulations to you, sir. And well done for just mentioning something gently. I think it was meaningful, and I think people really heard you.
Good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
So that's our week.
We've got more to talk about on this topic. We
I
barely got
know.
into chronic diseases, but we have an advocacy meeting that starts in 1 minute in a different Zoom. And so we will bid you adieu. And maybe we'll do a part 2 to this sooner rather than later so it drops. So they drop quickly.
All right, cool.
All right. See you,
Hey, folks.
everybody.
Ciao.
AHE is changing the face of homeopathy education by raising the bar through rigorous academics and unparalleled clinical training delivered live through the soulful use of cutting-edge technology. AHE prepares its students to become fully rounded homeopathic practitioners from anywhere in the world. Apply today at ahe.online.